Welcome to Creating Connections Podcast, episode 120. I am Mitch.
And I'm Vicki.
And today we're going to talk about what makes you more expensive than most. Are you more expensive than most? Maybe you're not. That's okay too. But oftentimes when we price ourselves, when we price our services, we tend to look at us as being better than average, right?
80% of the people in the world think they're better than average, though.
Exactly, which is kind of a funny statistic, isn't it? We're going to talk about that today on the podcast. See you in a minute.
That was nice and easy.
What are you talking about? This also speaks to a much bigger issue.
Providing personal solutions through understanding people. This is the Creating Connections Podcast with Gitomer Certified Advisor Mitch Taylor and Certified Personality Trainer Vicki Musni.
Welcome back to Creating Connections Podcast. I am Mitch.
And I'm Vicki.
We already said that too.
Yep, we did. That's okay. You often do it twice. We're not consistent.
What's wrong with doing it twice? So today we're talking about the fact of, are you more expensive than most? Are you better than average? Or are you just average? As Vicki stated earlier, 80% of the people feel they're better than most. And they're better than average, I should say. So
it's not possible. Just
right.
FYI.
She's not that good at math, folks, and she understands that. So how do you handle that?
Well, I think we see this a lot too on our forums. We should say this is a topic that came up because of the Sales for Event Pros Facebook group that we have.
And we're thankful for Mike Regan for posting it. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, and he's just one. He posted this question, but it comes up in other conversations separately where people are dealing with this issue, because if you are more expensive than most, then often you get different reactions from people. And some people get it. And some people are genuinely surprised. Well, wait, how? So I think it's a good question for us to reflect on. Why are we more expensive? And then how do we convey that if somebody asks us?
And there were a few different responses in the thread. Some people hit the whole, supply and demand. Other people hit the fact that they deliver more. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, to me, I understand both points of view, if you will. But ultimately, to me, we're going to deliver a different experience. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, what do you want out of your event? And the biggest question, I think, is how important is my service to you? Maybe it's really important. Maybe it's not. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Not every bride is going to want, or not every client is going to want, better than average. She may be average, or they may be average on certain things, an average venue, an average florist. I know of an event coming up right now that they've got a local friend, just graduated college, doing the photography. Mm-hmm. They went higher end on us. That's okay.
And then there are some people that were going to go super high end on the photography or the video. Or I know I shared on an earlier episode about my friend whose daughter met her fiance in culinary school. And so the food was their top priority.
Yes.
That was who they are.
Yes.
And that was fine. So I think part of it is us understanding we're not going to be everybody's priority.
Yeah.
But then how do you explain it? How do you say it to people in a way? Like, I can in my head say, well, the reason I charge this much is because I have to leave my family on the weekends. If you want to buy my time, but I would never say that to a client.
Right.
Saying I can say that to myself. I can say that to maybe other event pros.
Yeah.
Like, you're buying my time away from other things. So yeah, But that's not how you answer
part of it. But they're not buying they're not buying your time. No. They're buying your result.
They're buying the time I spend on my business.
Yes.
Too, everything that I've invested, my experience, my training,
But the reality is, they're getting a different result than what they could get anywhere else. And how that's defined is by what they want to experience on that event or with their guests, or what they want their venue to look like. If you're a decorator or florist or an event planner, you don't want to have the client be stressed. So your job is to take any stress off of that client. So whatever the case is, you have to understand what you're delivering and a way to communicate that value. So one way that we at Tailored Weddings use to communicate that value is surveys.
Yes.
And I know I've shared this in the past, and this goes back to Mark Farrell and everything else, but asking that question of what % of the success of your wedding reception would you attribute to Tailored Weddings, and a sliding scale of 0 to 100 and having couples circle. So if I can literally sit there and go back through and show couples, after our conversation, our meeting, our chit chat about their event, and show them past surveys, on average, couples say we're responsible for 80% of the success of the event, to only fall in around 10 to 20% of a budget. It's a pretty good value, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's ways to show that. And if you have videos of past brides and grooms, as we talk about in our book, Creating Connections, I believe it's chapter 6, right?
That's coming up.
Yeah, we talk about sending mail with a stamp, and you get those reviews. Get those reviews from couples. It's in their own handwriting. So when you can show social proof from past couples who believed in your services, past clients who loved what you did and raved about you, and that's another way to overcome the so expensive thing. Now, something that Corey Young wrote in that thread was that, many couples may feel I'm expensive, but you'll never see overpriced in a review. And I love that approach, because that's kind of a very similar approach that we take. Many couples feel that we're expensive, and that's kind of the rep we have around town. We're expensive. As long as my couples believe we're worth every penny, I don't care.
Yeah.
So that to me is the guiding factor.
So I'm going to put you on the spot and stray from this a little bit.
Yep, fire away.
Because are there ways to talk about because when people ask this question, they're comparing you to someone else that they looked at in your market, someone else that was referred to them. And instead of asking, well, why are you worth more? They're really saying, well, why do you cost more? How can you continue to guide that conversation in a positive way without bad-mouthing other companies?
So I think it's important for you to compare apples to apples. With them, are you getting a company that does this full time for a living? That their sole focus is the success of your event? Are you getting someone that's dedicated their life to successful events for couples? Are you getting the chance to call them at any point in time, have them at your beck and call to handle questions that you may need? Customer service is a big thing. And the reality is that, planning a wedding is almost a full-time job in and of itself. If you think planning one wedding is stressful, try planning 100. So that's what we do here at Tailored Weddings pretty much every year. We plan about 100 events a year. And so the reality is to be able to have someone like that at your beck and call, to know you've got someone to turn to know you've got someone who's going to take the time to dedicate to not just, playing the music, but playing the right song at the right time. Not just someone to make announcements, but someone to move your crowd emotionally that evening, to focus on you and what you want out of your event. Not just someone to introduce your father-daughter dance, but someone to help make a memory that your dad will cherish forever. not just someone to, spin dancing music that evening and put up some lights, but someone to make your guests say at the end of the night, oh my gosh, that was amazing. We had so much fun. Mm-hmm. Those are the differences.
Yeah. Well, and I think I just want to add too that I think this goes back to the whole conversation about knowing your USP.
Yeah.
And because some of your answers resonated with me and other things, I was like, wow, that is not at all how I operate, how I would answer that question,
sure,
how my company is set up.
Right.
And I just throw that out there to say that Mitch and I are very different, and it's okay if you're different too. So I love I love listening to your perspective, Mitch. And I also just want to remind people, though, if your business model is different or your focus is different, it's more important that you know you, and that you can answer that same question with the same level of passion and conviction that you just heard. And when you can answer that confidently about who you are, that's going to help you be able to continue a conversation and knowing your value.
Knowing your sweet spot. I just took on a wedding in Vermont for a friend of mine. And when she contacted me, she was contacting me looking for referrals for local DJs in the Vermont area. And when she explained to me what she wanted, it was clear to me that she wanted a Marbecca method entertainer, if you will. That's what she wanted. She wanted someone to make sure it felt intimate, that people were there for a purpose, that everything was locally sourced or had a connection to the bride and groom somehow. And she wanted everyone to feel connected that evening. And I'm like, you're not going to get this with just some regular DJ you hire off the street without having some sort of bond with you at a time, or lots of time spent with you.
Yeah.
So
you can't just show up and do that at that point.
No, it's extremely difficult to try to do that at that point, if impossible. So I think know your strengths, know your weaknesses. And if it is a weakness, like let's say they wanted for example, I've done Hindi weddings before in the past. I have, but it's not my specialty.
I did a quinceañera once.
I've done quinces. And
for a very good friend, but
I've
not
done
my
mitzvahs.
forte.
I've done 3 mitzvahs in my career. I will never do another mitzvah. Ever. They're not my forte. I'm not good.
Well, this is kind of what we talked about briefly in the last week's episode with my girlfriend with the Boot Rocks company. Like, she knew her niche, and she knew when she could meet a need and when she couldn't.
Yeah.
And that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's
ties in.
Yeah, that's today's topic. So
know who you are.
Yeah, know who you are and know the result you deliver. And know specifically who you want to work with, not for. That's important too.
Yeah.
So that's it for today for Creating Connections podcast. Thank you for watching. We greatly appreciate your viewership. Comment down below if you got a comment, something you want to hear on a future podcast, a topic you'd like to have taken care of by us or have discussed by us, whatever the case might be. We'd love to hear from you. If you think this podcast is great, please go write a review on iTunes. If you think it sucks, do nothing. That's what you need to do. So again, thank you very much for watching and listening. We greatly appreciate your being a part of our Creating Connections family here. I'm Mitch Taylor.
And I'm Vicki Musney.
This is Creating Connections podcast, providing personal solutions through understanding people. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Creating Connections podcast with Gittimer Certified Advisor Mitch Taylor and Certified Personality Trainer Vicki Musney. For more information on providing personal solutions through understanding people better, visit creatingconnections.biz.